It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Thursday, July 27th, and so happy for you joining us today. And we are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Sermons in the Sky, we have QNA Thursday, and of course, commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? It is Thursday. Yes, I am so happy because the weekend is upon us. Thursday, my favorite day of the week. How was your Wednesday service last night? I hope you guys really enjoyed that. You can leave some comments below. Encouragements for your pastors too. If you haven't yet, leave a like and comment to build our community. Just really happy for everyone joining us each and every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up, support each other each and every day. So happy that all of you are joining us here with this week's title, God's Beloved Body has become the body of the people of the world. That is why they were judged. To whom does your body belong? Yeah, and I'm very thankful for all the people who are commenting about all the different things that are happening around the world. I also got some text messages last night of what's happening in Europe, and it's pretty crazy. Some of the videos that I'm seeing, it's really shocking. I have a good friend who's over there in Italy, and it's, yeah, just seeing some of the videos and the TikToks that they're sending me, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, it's not only in Italy. Italy right now, they're telling me, has the thunderstorms, high winds in the north, extreme heat in the south, which is pretty crazy. And then just Spain too, the flooding is ridiculous. So, and people are writing it in the comments too, sending me in the DMs. And I think we, after hearing this week's message, we're just like, okay, so it's the judgment of God. We're like, there's no other way around this. Like, everyone in the world is like, climate change. But it was in the message. In the message, it's like, people are going to say it's coincidence or they're going to blame it on climate change. But we who know the words of God, this is not climate change, right? So I hope that we will be even more serious about this 70-day prayer condition, which brings me to this really happy note that I'm on right now. I am super happy right now, and I know that all the guys that the campus guys that I talk to and I take care of on at the church over here, like, I'm not really taking care of them. We just go out to have fun, and we decided to do like a pre-dawn condition. So this pre-dawn condition is, hey, guess what? We're gonna, take responsibility, and we all want to do pre-dawn prayer better, so we're gonna do it together. So we call each other at night, we call each other in the morning to wake each other up. And this morning, I felt so proud, right? And I think this is something that we can, I'm not experimenting, but I'm really just looking at how we can take care of these guys. And this morning's pre-dawn prayer, there was like 6 people logged on to the Zoom to watch the pre-dawn service. And of the 6 people logged on, 5 of them were the campus guys. Like me and 4 other campus guys, and then there was someone else. And I was like, I sat there like, wow, this is so amazing. These guys are getting up. And this is like the 3rd day in a row. I think 2 people have missed once each. But this is day 3. We've done 3 days. 2 of us have done all 3 days. And the other 2 have missed once. But I'm just really proud just to see that they're getting up. And I'm like, it's weird because there's only 6 people logged on, but 5 of us were guys. And that made me feel like, whoa, we're really getting up for this. And I hope that we can keep this up more and more. So that's why I'm really happy about today. I'm just super happy about just to see these guys taking responsibility, getting up, and coming to the pre-dawn service too. So super happy. Yeah. And today's a beautiful day. It's 19 right now, but it's going to top out at 23, which is perfect weather. So I'm super excited to go out after recording this podcast, which is basically just going out to a cafe and being inside. So it's kind of like contradictory. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go outside, but I'm going to go outside to another cafe because today is Latte Wednesday at this cafe I go to, and it's only $3 a latte. So I'm like, oh, I'm excited to go on these days also. I got a question for you guys, and I've been having some discussions with some buddies of mine, and we are discussing about starting. Do you guys know what Discord is? Discord is like a server where you can have you can build a community. It's like really, really popular right now. You can just download it on your phone, on your computer, whatever it is, and then you can join a Discord community. Right? And that community is controlled by, for instance, for crypto, there's crypto companies that have their own Discords that people ask their questions. People are discussing about the coin. It's just, and there's 20 channels in there. In that one Discord, each channel is for different things. One is for shilling, shilling other coins. Another one is for asking questions. One is for beginners. There's a bunch of different stuff there. And I had a chat with a friend just yesterday, and we are thinking about making a lecture Discord. So a lecture Discord channel will basically be anyone who's a lecturer, who's lecturing or lecturing right now, can join this Discord so we can talk, chat, ask questions to each other. How to answer certain questions when someone asks in a Bible study, those types of things where we can kind of build a lecture community where all the English-speaking lecturers around the world can kind of get more input, more feedback from other lecturers and others that could be even more, more experienced and have faced certain questions that others haven't. So we are thinking about opening up a lecture Discord, and I'm kind of excited about this too. And it's open. I want to open it to the English world, but because of Discord, if you have too many people in it, it's hard to manage. So I'm thinking starting off with only lecturers, people who are actually lecturing, right? English lecturers, or if you're not even an English lecturer, but you're lecturing in another language, but you do speak English, you guys can go into that room and we can chat about those types of things too. So that is something that I was discussing yesterday, and we're thinking about opening up a Discord channel for English lecturers around the world. It's not a place for you to just kind of hang out with other lecturers. It's going to be a very practical place for people who are lecturing, who need help, who want feedback, who are trying to figure out certain questions and answers and stuff like that too. So that is something that was discussed. I want to know what you guys think about this. And please, only for lecturers, right? So if you are someone who is lecturing right now, tell me what you think and if this would be something you'd be interested in joining, because I think a good start would be anywhere from 15 to 25 lecturers getting into that Discord, and we can just have a general time of chatting. Everyone's going to be on different time zones, so we can't really expect everyone to be chatting all the time, because some people are halfway across the world. Asia and America right now are half a day away from each other. So when it's night, it's morning. When it's morning, it's night. So, but that is an idea that we came up with, and we're hoping that this could be something that people can definitely benefit from. There was a comment. Okay, there's a comment I do want to talk about. There's a comment on the merit system. All right, and I haven't responded to yet, but I liked this comment because it's in my poll. Remember the poll I put up? Those of you guys haven't Those of you haven't voted yet, I put up a poll on the merit system and what is your general experience of it, right? Now, this person here, the name is Holash. I'm not sure who this is. I'm not sure even what country it is, but if you're there, you can just tell me in the comments who you are. But if you want, you don't have to. And this person said they discussed with a friend regarding the evangelism merit system and told them the points that were covered on the podcast. And the view of her friend says that there's no fault in the system, but rather it sounded like people's feelings getting hurt because their names are not on the list. And this person said my views were slightly changed after their comments, because it's true that evangelism is not about the rewards and mentions, but it's the people who centered evangelism for the prizes and mentions for the prizes and for the acknowledgement, and it's their fault for thinking that way. Okay, so this is something I think it's a very sensitive subject, But I do think, I'm hoping that this friend is not a leader, because this is where leadership has to kind of go into an active role, seeing the broad picture, right? So let's just say generally speaking, and technically speaking, what the friend said is correct. It shouldn't be about the merit. It shouldn't be about the acknowledgement, right? It should be purely because you love God. And that is truth, right? So I'm not going to say that is wrong. That is absolute truth. However, if we think only technically, like, of course, it should only be for this, you completely lose the human aspect, the understanding of the human heart, the emotions, the mind that people have. Like, we're human, right? Yes, there is a certain way. Like, put it this way. If it was purely about doing it for God, not for the acknowledgement and not for the merits, then you don't need a merit system. Do you know what I mean? If it's really about that, then we shouldn't have a merit system at all. It wouldn't even exist, because that's the way that we should do it, right? But the reason that system is there, it is to acknowledge people. It is to reward them for all the hard work that they did. Is it supposed to be the focus? Absolutely not. However, when I look at it from a leadership point of view, because I was a head leader, I saw all the trouble it caused. And I'm going to be very, very honest. In the beginning, while I was doing it, in my head, I thought the same as Holash's friend. That is like, come on, it's not about, the merit system is not the problem. It's about people. People misunderstand the merit system. However, as a head leader, I begin to hear about people's stories. And some are petty. I agree, some are petty. But some are very, very understandable. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example of one. What if there is a lecturer, okay? And someone's lecturing someone that got evangelized. And then their name was put on the list. However, there was another person and another lecturer. There were two lecturers, but one name wasn't put on the list. And guess what? The main lecturer taught a little bit more than half. Right? So I don't know the exact number, but they taught something like 15 lessons, and then the other person taught like 11 or 12. Now, imagine you having your name left off, but you've done a big bulk of it. Like, think about it. 11, 12 to 15 is only like 3 to 4 lessons less. They taught basically half of the lessons. Someone taught a little bit more. Does that mean they make a bigger impact just because they taught more? And my question came up in my head, like when I think about it now, is it petty for someone to ask for acknowledgement? And the answer is no. It's not petty. Think about this. What about if you're at work? What if you're at work or school? And if everyone on your team gets acknowledged for the same project except you, would you be upset or not? And the answer is you would be upset, because you put in the effort too. You were part of the team, but if everyone else gets acknowledged except you, how would that make you feel? You would say, would you really say what technically people are supposed to feel like? Well, I know that in my heart I did the work, and I know that God saw me, and even though everyone else got a reward, I'm okay. And the answer is no way. Human beings need acknowledgement. That's part of love. Acknowledgement is part of love, right? Because if acknowledgement isn't part of love, then why would someone who's in love with someone else, who doesn't acknowledge the hard work that they did to help them, doesn't acknowledge them, why would the other person get hurt? If we didn't need acknowledgement, right, then we don't need a merit system, right? Think about this, guys. What if there's a team of 3 working together, 2 people get a letter from some team saying, good job, and you didn't get it? Is it okay? Are you fine with it? Or are you going to really feel left out? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's part of it's human nature. It's part of our heart. We want acknowledgement. Wouldn't you, like, imagine you work hard all day, and you're like, oh, I'm doing this for God. I'm doing this for God. I'm doing this for God, right? And then someone says, man, you really are amazing. And I really felt God through all the things you did today. would you not feel better? Imagine you go through, I know people that have been like zero acknowledgement for years, right? This is why there's complaints, like why is there's complaints, and I think they're rightful complaints of, how come only evangelists get like these rewards, but what about people who are financial donors? What about people who are prayer warriors? What about people who help in a different way? Like, even if, like, think about this. We say to people, prayer is the most powerful thing you can do. So imagine someone prays 50 hours for someone and then they don't get acknowledged. Wouldn't that be going against what we teach, that we say prayer is that powerful, but then we don't acknowledge prayer? You know what I'm saying? Like, take a look at the poll. Like, even when I'm looking at the poll right now, there's something very interesting is, look at the experiences of people. Like, there's neutral, which is in the middle, and 40% are kind of neutral. Like, yeah, nothing bad, nothing great, nothing negative happened. But look at the huge difference between the positive and the negative. 45% said they had a slightly negative or negative experience. 45%, which means 15% that said they had a positive or slightly positive experience. So you got to think about this. If I was in leadership and I have a system out there where only 15% are receiving a positive outcome from it, then I need to think twice about what kind of system this actually is. Is it really good or not, right? Because this is, as someone who's a leader looking at it from the very broad point of view, it might be easy for me to say, oh, you know what? They have the wrong mindset. They're misunderstanding the merit system. I think that would be disingenuous. Because if even when you're a leader, you don't care if anyone says you did a good job for preaching. You don't want anyone to encourage you, anyone to praise you. No, Sun seems all about that. Praising, encouraging, helping, supporting. Why? Because we need it. Like when we just say, like, to think about this, 15% have a positive experience with the merit system, only 15%. And then now we just say, oh, well, they all have the wrong mindset. So only 15% of us are right. I think it totally misses the point of the human aspect of this merit system, right? It kind of dehumanizes people. What we're trying to do is making people more human, but it dehumanizes them. Oh, you're all having the wrong thinking. But there is, we have to understand what the purpose of the merit system is. There is a purpose to it. The purpose is to acknowledge. The purpose is to reward. And even in Providence, that purpose is even greater, because for us in this history to be acknowledged by Sunstein is huge, right? It's not a small thing, right? It's to think about that, getting a letter or whatever it is, it's a big thing to us. So think about this. If there wasn't a merit system, people would not look at the merit. Right? They say, oh, you're looking at the merit system wrong. But I'm like, well, then what's the point of a merit system? Why is it even there in the first place? Right? That's like kind of saying like this, hey, there's a merit system for evangelism. Oh, but don't do it for the merit. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. You put it there and people are going to see it. You put it there, people are going to have a reward and a huge ceremony at the end of the year saying that you've done the greatest job. Having the merit system makes people look at it and makes people think about it. It's kind of like the psychology of, if you tell me not to think of white elephants, the first thing the human mind does is think of white elephants, even though I'm trying not to. And that's why I think it's quite a sensitive topic, but the merit system has great intentions. It's for acknowledgement, rewarding people who are doing amazing things in this history. But from my humble opinion, I believe that the system that we have right now causes more damage than good. Right? And I can tell you, as a head leader and a leader, I was also in IMD, other places. One of the biggest things that the higher ups always ask for is, I'm going to tell you this, more than asking about how happy the people are, they ask, what are your evangelism numbers, which is stressing. Every time there's an event, they ask for the numbers. Every time they want to report, they ask for the numbers. They're rarely asking, how happy are the members? How much are they growing? How much are they just so joyful to be in this history? They don't ask those questions. They're asking for actual numbers, right? And that's why people turn more to those things, because the leaders are stressed by those things too. But here's the thing that I'm going to bring up, that as a leader, we do have to research some of these things. And there is science behind the study on motivation. Okay? So here's the thing. The question I give to you guys is, do you agree with me that punishments are a bad motivator? And the answer is absolutely. I think we all agree that punishments demotivate us, and the science behind it proves that punishments they have a negative consequence. Okay? But here's the real question: is when you look at the science behind motivation, and punishments are a bad motivator, and we all agree with that, why is it a bad motivator? And the answer is, it's because it's trying to control behavior. It is not a natural, under my free will trying to control my behavior. It is a natural behavior. It's a control of my behavior, which is, do this or this will happen. And people don't like to be controlled. And here's the thing that's very interesting under the science. So we all agree that punishments are something that's negative, and it's not going to make people work better, right? It's going to have a negative effect. But here is the science behind motivation when it comes to rewards. They say punishments and rewards are actually two sides of the same coin. Both have a punitive effect because they are manipulative. That's a problem. Right? That's the science behind it. That's what's going on in people's minds, right? So, see, here's the thing that's quite interesting is the people usually who have the least amount of problem with the merit system are the ones getting acknowledged and getting the merit and getting the rewards, right? Those are the ones that they're happy. They're the ones on the good, usually. I'm not saying all, right? But science says what these do to the human brain is it demotivates and makes us do less, right? And it's crazy. Scientific studies are showing that rewards have the same effect as a punishment, because it's the same concept of manipulating my behavior by taking away or giving me something. And this is what makes people not motivated by it, right? What's more interesting is this. This is something that's very, very interesting. This is what rewards cause. All right? These are some of the things in science that are showing what rewards cause, right? Rewards break relationships, and it stops cooperation from happening. So you'll have these relationships among people that you're working with, and those relationships become casualties of the scramble for a reward, right? So some people will not get the reward, and they're scrambling around, but I did this, and I did this, and I did this. And what happens is it demotivates them, and then the next year they don't want to do it anymore, right? Because they're like, it's so unfair. They're not getting acknowledged for what they've done, right? And like I said before, is we can't say that, oh, you can't do it for the acknowledgement. And the answer is people don't do it for the acknowledgement. However, if they don't get acknowledged, it demotivates them, right? Anything that incentivizes, then any type of performance incentive, actually, the bigger the incentive, the more it reduces the possibilities for cooperation. Tell me that's crazy, right? So what should people leadership be focusing on? Not on the merit. It should be focusing on treating everyone well. All the people that are running, treat them all well. Providing useful feedback, social support, giving them the space for self-determination, making their own decision. And this is what the essence of good management is. But if you're dangling some type of carrot in front of them and say, oh, you're going to get this incentive and you're going to get recognized by the Lord and you're going to get recognized by God, you're going to get a letter, you're going to get this money, whatever it is, already psychologically it's going into people's brains. And what happens is the people running, they're waiting for the results and they put in much less effort. So it demotivates, right? Also, one thing that I found this is something very interesting because it has to do with one of the Q&A questions today. I could probably do it even right now and talk about it a bit, but it says, if you incentivize, if you reward this merit-based system kind of thing, it stops creativity. And this is something that's very interesting because think about it. If there is a reward system, then people will take less risks. They won't try new ways of evangelism. They won't try new things. How many times have you guys seen a church try new things? Because the risk is, if we try something new, then we might get less than what we have now, and we can't have that. When you have these rewards and this merit, it causes everyone not to take risks, right? So the quote is, people will do precisely what they are asked to do if the reward is significant. So think about this. Whenever people are encouraged to think about what they will get for engaging in a task, they become less inclined to take risks or explore possibilities, to play hunches or to consider incidental like other stuff, like other things that come in like, I think we should do this. So in other words, the number one casualty of a merit system, reward system, is creativity. And I'm going to say this is why we're kind of always doing the same thing for evangelism. It's always surveys. It's always this type of booth and doing it a certain way. It's always one-on-one. And we're not going to think bigger and say that, let's try a group. We can't do group because it's not as personalized as a one-on-one Bible study. And we'll always come up with these reasons, and we're always going to end up having the same level of evangelism all the time. And that's something that I look at. And I think the reason why I love that comment is because it's good. One of the first things that I think was great for this person, Holash, was asking people and starting a conversation. And I think that's great. I think that is one of the best things you can do, is to start the conversation, right? The thing that we have to understand is, regardless of what we hear from other people, we need to discern really well and talk to multiple different types of people to find out, is this really good? Well, this is the reason why I put up the poll. The poll is 3 times more people are having a negative experience than a positive experience, right? 15% are getting positive, 45%, which means this is something we really need to look at. It's something we really need to look at and say, hey, what does this mean? Yes, is that person right saying that we shouldn't be doing it for merit and we shouldn't be doing it for acknowledgement? And the answer is, I agree at some level, but like I said before, it completely dismisses the human heart. It dismisses what human beings are actually like. And we are not like that. To say that we don't need acknowledgement is false. Human beings need acknowledgement when we deserve it, right? Of course, when we deserve it, because we get embarrassed when we get acknowledged for something we didn't do, right? But when we deserve it, we deserve acknowledgement. And one thing that's very interesting for me is the merit system is, I'm going to say, like I said, the intention is great. But looking at the results from what I see right now, and they minimize it to only 3 names could be on it. For me, when I was a head leader, what I realized is there are so many people working on evangelism. And for me is, at one point I was like, only 3 names? That's so unfair. That's really unfair. At the end, I was kind of like, maybe we should just send the name of the person who brought them. Because without the person who brought them, there's no one can teach them. No one can, that's probably one of the hardest parts. But we had teams of 7 people, and we acknowledged them in church. That team, including the people who pray. 3 people who go out to pray, and they will pray 40 hours for this newcomer, including the lecturer, including the person who's giving finance, including the person that is managing, including the person that has evangelized them. Because it takes a village to it takes a village to raise a child, right? And to bring these people into this history, it takes a lot of people, not just 2 or 3. So I do think there's something that we have to change. And for me I'm all down for scrapping the merit system altogether. I'm all down for it, but I do think there's a better way to do it. I do think there's a better way. And the thing in my head is everyone who is doing evangelism should all be rewarded. Not just the people who are successful at it. That's my thinking. Because we don't control who passes. Everyone's working hard. Like I think maybe it's better to only to incentivize just how many people we meet or how many people we get to start studying more than the people that actually pass, because we don't control that. Human beings have free will. And like, I think if we base it only on the result, it gets rid of all the effort that's put in by all the other people. Like, there's a lot of things that I have in my mind. What would be a better way to do it? I do think people do need acknowledgement, so I don't want to scrap it altogether. But I do think maybe like scrapping it and making something better would, is something that's on my mind. So I just think the way that we do it now, it doesn't really address the true merit of the people. Because Sansim has said himself that your merit, just going out and meeting people, going out to evangelize, that is merit in God's eyes, right? It's not just the passing. Because if it's only about passing, then people are wasting a ton of time. Because most of the people, they don't pass, right? Which means I look at that saying, well, if that's the case, then our system should be based on effort more than the actual result. Even though the results are very important, everyone should be rewarded. Everyone going to evangelize, everyone praying and helping out. There should be something for those people. And I think that's something that we kind of need to change and look at it in a different way. So that's kind of my thoughts on this. And the reason why I brought this up, because it is a big topic. It really is. So Holash, thank you for that comment. I think it was very, very well done. It was good insight, and I thought it was very... I'm really happy when people are discussing these topics outside of the podcast. And I like it when you get... I like it when there is disagreement. Like this person says, no, it's those people's fault. And I think that's a great point. It should be not about the merit and the acknowledgement. However, because of that comment, it actually made me think deeper about it too, right? So I can explain it better, like, oh, that's a good point, and that is true. And what could I add to that, right? So I thought that was a great comment, great point, and that's something that I hope that everyone it makes people think more deeply too. So great comment, hope you guys enjoyed that. Wow, we went off on this one. We're already like in the 30. We've gone like 30 minutes on this. I think we've gone about 25 or something like that. But it's because it's great insight in a great comment, and it made me think more deeply. It is Thursday. There's one more thing I was going to talk about. I actually forgot what I was going to talk about. But today we had a lot of good questions for QNA Thursday. Hope you guys are that's going to be like the major thing. It's going to be a lot of questions. I think like 4 or 5 questions. Really good ones about this week's message and for other points that are coming up too. Okay. So let's get into our first break of the day.
The dreams that we have hoped for until now, the will that we have kept without a doubt, they become my soul's melody, the beautiful song my spirit sings, the days when we took action side by side, the blessings that have now become all mine. I will live eternally, recalling those moments vividly.
All right, so let's get into today's Q&A Thursday. We have several questions, I think 4 or 5 questions. So let's get into this. Really, really good questions. The first question is, if God is carrying out judgment of Noah right now against those who left and married people of the world, will they have a chance to be saved again in spirit? And the answer is yes. Right. So according to the message, if this time is the same as Noah's time, then we understand also that even though these people disobeyed the man of mission, they went against him, they didn't listen to him, they went to a spiritual prison, and then 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 18 through 20, they were able to hear the gospel directly from Jesus, right? So it is a time where people, even though they go against the man of mission, they are able to have a chance to repent and come back into this history, right? So they're waiting in some type of prison if they die. And if they don't die, the purpose of the flood, the judgment of water, remember, it's a judgment of conscience, which means that they go through suffering so that they can realize what they've done wrong, so that they can turn around and repent, right? So it is a physical judgment only, right? So we know that it doesn't mean that all of a sudden everyone who's against us is going to die. It's nothing like that, guys. It's more it is a physical judgment. We see all these like natural disasters, things happening around the world. And even when you look at the stuff that I reported on so far, it's not like you have millions or even thousands or even hundreds of people dying. It's very few that are dying, but people are able to see the suffering or go through that suffering, realize what they've done, and turn and repent, right? So it's a completely different type of judgment than the fire. And for the people, what Sunseep said right now is, it is the time of the judgment of water, which is a judgment of conscience, which is a physical judgment. And I find it very interesting because when we think about betrayal, it's such a big sin, right? It's a huge sin, which is betrayal. But and in one case, I thought to myself, it's like, isn't that kind of like the unforgivable sin? Like if you go against the Holy Spirit, the inspiration of knowing who the man of mission is. But I'm also guessing that as long as they don't die, or there's always a chance for them to come back. So I think that leads into the next question, which also has to do with that kind of a similar question, which is, why does God carry out the judgment of fire and not the judgment of water in the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, where he destroys both the body and spirit and leaving no chance for people to be restored, even in the spiritual world? Okay, so that is a very interesting question. And someone asked a very similar question too. It says, who does the judgment of fire apply to? Is it those who left and are living more decrepitly, as described in Jude, right? When they talk about Sodom and Gomorrah, like, who gets the fire and who gets the water judgment? And the two big cases we have where Sunseep says the best examples of judgment of fire is the time of Noah and Sodom and Gomorrah. So I was thinking about this very carefully too. It's like, why did the people of Sodom and Gomorrah get no chance, but then the people at the time of Noah, they get a chance? Isn't it kind of odd? A little bit odd, isn't it? Like, well, why would there be judgment of body and spirit for one group and not for the other? And I had to think about this more deeply. I called some friends in Korea too, some pastors, and we're like, wow, Sunseep hasn't talked about what is the difference between the two. So that made me think a little bit more deeply about the two cases that Sunseep talks about. The two main examples is the judgment of water is the time of Noah, and the judgment of fire is the time of Sodom and Gomorrah. And what I wanted to do is look at the similarities and differences between the two. The biggest difference that I found between the two was this. The time of Noah's flood, right? The flood at the time of Noah was a judgment for people who believed, right? Remember, in Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, it says that the sons of God went to the daughters of men, which is a literary device, which basically says the people of God went to the people of the world, right? So there's the first one. The people of God went to the people of the world, which means it's talking about believers. And for Sodom and Gomorrah, the interesting thing was it was for Gentiles, right? And it looks like just from this examples of the flood in Sodom and Gomorrah, the flood is for people who believed, and Sodom and Gomorrah is for the people who don't believe, which is quite interesting. for me. It makes it makes some sense, but it seems that one is for those that believe to have a chance to repent and come back, and the others don't get a chance because maybe it's because they live such a decrepit life. Like, it is like beyond what is normal of a human being that the judgment of conscience would not be enough for them to turn at all. Do you know what I mean? So I'm like, there is something where Sunseam says there is a point where people go to a certain cross a certain line where they can no longer come back. Now, this is me just referencing certain things. I'm not sure what the actual answer is, but I'm just going through my mental exercises of what I think about this. Right? We look at Noah and Sodom. In both cases, the righteous were saved. So Noah's family was saved, and also Abraham's nephew Lot and his family were saved. Okay? In both cases, there was also a central figure. It was Noah at that time and Abraham at the other. Remember, and however, interesting thing about Noah's time is, in Noah's time, Noah talked to those people. He knew all the people. They were all people of God around him. While Abraham had no idea about anyone in Sodom and Gomorrah except for his nephew, and that's it. Right? So one is that the central figure knew, and the other is the central figure had no idea who the people were. Right? And which makes me think of, when you go to the central figure lesson, it makes me think about the role of the central figure and how important it is. And the thing that it makes me think about is Moses on Mount Sinai getting the 10 Commandments. And when he was getting the 10 Commandments, they built the golden calf and they started to worship another god. So once again, that is betrayal, right? And God was like so angry, he's ready to destroy all of Israel. However, because it's Moses' people and he loves them so much, he mediates on behalf of, and he calms down God's anger, and God doesn't fully judge them, right? And I think this would make a huge difference in this case too, where it's not just people who are coming against the man of mission, but it's people that the man of mission loves, that he knows, people that were close to him, people that worked together, did amazing things together and have helped this history, right? So I think that makes a big difference too, is when you look at the people of Noah's time, they were people that Noah knew, right? And that reminds me, and they were given a second chance, just like the time of Moses. He interceded on behalf of his people because he knew them. Where in the case of Abraham, he only knew his nephew. That's it. That's the only person he knew there, and they were saved. So that's kind of something that I looked at as like that's a nice that's a difference between those two there. In Noah's case, history continued after the flood. But in Sodom and Gomorrah's case, it just ended. Those cities were not built again, right? Sodom and Gomorrah, those names don't even exist anymore, kind of thing, right? So that's something that I found was another difference between the two. And what we know is water is the judgment of conscience, right? And what is conscience? Conscience is knowing what is right, knowing what is good. And if you go against conscience, means you did something that you knew was wrong, right? Which means that they still have a conscience. And it kind of, for me, it kind of implies that Sodom and Gomorrah, they lost their conscience. There was nothing else that could be done, right? Because what we know from what we heard in the word is, like I said before, is you can save a tree as long as it's not dead. So until the point it is absolutely 100% dead, there's a chance that this person can turn around. And maybe that could be something at this time here is people are just going against conscience. They haven't lost their conscience. Their conscience hasn't died. They're just going against what they know is right. And that's why they'll see the suffering, they'll go through suffering, and they'll get a chance to repent and come around again, right? So it looks like there's a couple of these things that we have to think about, and some of the things that we can reference, like we can infer that if it's a judgment of conscience, it means that there still is some conscience left. And Sodom and Gomorrah probably hit a line where they went so extreme that they no longer have any conscience. And if you think about it carefully, it was so bad there that the entire town came to Lot's house. And all the men came and said, bring out those men that we saw come into your house so that we can have sex with them. Like, that's how bad it was. Even though they were human angels, all the men in the surrounding towns came and they all wanted to have sex with those new men that just came into their town, right? So you see that it seems that the conscience has died. And that's something that I think is another thing that we need to think about. So I'm not sure if it just means that one is mainly for believers and the other isn't, or it's just not a coincidence, but it's what's that word? It's there's a correlation that if you are a believer, you still have conscience. And even if you turned your back, you'll still have a conscience remaining that's alive, right? Because you've known what you've seen. You've heard the words that you heard, right? So for me, I'm not sure if it's about the judgment of water is for believers and the judgment of fire is for non-believers, because eventually, even believers who turn their back will be judged spiritually too. So I think it's just a correlation that one is for believers and one is not, because it's more about, is your conscience living or has your conscience died? I think that would be the big thing. Like, even if you look at us, one of the things that Sunseem said is, if you feel guilt, it means your spirit's still alive. If you feel guilt, right? Like if you don't wake up for pre-dawn and you feel, oh, I should have woke up for pre-dawn, God, I'm so sorry, then your conscience is still living, right? Which is a good sign. Even if you didn't do it, your conscience is not dead. Your spirit is not dead. So I would say that the biggest word that we have to look at is the word conscience. Right? And I'm thinking this is my what I'm inferring, and this is what I'm just thinking about, because Sunseem hasn't really talked about it, like exactly what the difference is. But I think this could be one of the major reasons is the conscience has to be living in order for a judgment to come on you where you will turn and think twice and say, maybe this is not the right thing to do. Let me repent. But if your conscience is dead, it makes no difference what judgment comes around, because it's dead. Whatever happens and comes, whatever suffering you go through, you will never turn back because your conscience has died. So, great question. I am not sure if that is the 100% answer, but I'm going by, kind of that's my mental exercise that I go through. And, I'm waiting. Hopefully, maybe at the Wednesday message, there'll be an answer for that. I'm not sure, but I doubt it, because the person I talked to, the head leader I talked to about this question, they've already gone through their Wednesday service and they said there was nothing about that, right? So that is going to be kind of my thoughts on it, and would love to hear what you guys think about that also. Next question is a great, these next two questions I really think are interesting questions. There's 5 questions altogether, right? So the first one is, what is your opinion on survey evangelism? I think I talked about this, right? No, I brought it up in the beginning point. And this person said, I've seen it as quite a popular method used by people in Providence. It didn't seem that effective to me compared to making friends, but I was curious to hear your experience. My biggest thing about surveys is I've seen surveys somewhat work, right? And if you look, like, it's true. It's a popular method. However, it's not really that effective. It really isn't, right? Like, super effective. My biggest thing about surveys is that they're not targeted enough. And I'm going to say this about evangelism in general. When someone asks me about how to evangelize better, my first question is, who's your target audience? Because there are like 20, 30, 50 different types of people out there, maybe even hundreds, right, of different types of people out there that people can target. And not everyone can target everyone, right? Like, for instance, can you go out and find like K-pop idols? And the answer is no way. Because number one is you're not connected to them. Number two is you wouldn't even know what they struggle with and the things that they want to hear, right? Surveys are done to get specific information about people, right? And if it's way too general, and it's just looking for someone who just has an interest in God, I think that's not going to work as well. I think that people should have a target of what type of person they want to evangelize. Then your lectures and intros or everything will be geared towards that type of person. For instance, for me, the group that I work with really well is Christians. Because I was a Christian. I understand what they're thinking. I understand what they want to know. I understand the things that pique their mindset. So I will talk about things that are very interesting for a Christian, right? And that's why my target, like on my survey, would first be what, are you a Christian? Or what is your religion, right? What is your age? What is, I'll do the basic stuff, but I'll find out what their religion is, and I'll ask questions. My survey will have questions about the Bible. The people who don't have like any, are not like have any Bible experience, what's going to happen? Then it's not a target that I'm really targeting for. And you might think to yourself like, oh my gosh, then you're throwing away a ton of people. And the answer is, well, I don't even know if I can help these people to that extent. Like I want a specific type of people, right? Like even like I remember in Japan when they first started their evangelism in Japan. Evangelism in Japan started at the best university in the country, finding the smartest of the smartest people. They were targeting a certain group. They did not go anywhere else. They found a certain group. So for me, surveys are great for people who are kind of shy and have a hard time talking to people. Or if you're looking for a very specific type of person, like a soccer survey, right? What do you think about this? Well, like, it's about soccer. I'm looking for soccer people, right? I would have to say that the most effective method is making friends. Like just getting close to people, hanging out, having a good time, which basically means like it's just love. Like I think that is the most effective method. I've told you guys this before at the Lord's Church. When we evangelized 100, it was like 100 people. I was asking the lecturers, like, wow, 100 people have passed. And this good friend of mine said to me, do you know how many of these people were waiting for the Lord's second coming? And I was like going, whoa, like they must be so many. He's like, two out of 100. The rest of them are all through friendships. The rest of them are all through like these clubs and other things that they did together. They got closer to each other. Like that, just looking at that survey right there, 98% of the people evangelized were done in a very natural type of way, building relationships and, getting to know each other. And I think that's something that we should take into consideration. If you can't make friends, then make a club where you can find people who are like-minded like you, right? So yeah, survey evangelism, I'm not going to say it doesn't work because I've seen it work too. I just wish it was more targeted. Like you actually have a certain group of people you're looking for, right? And I think that would be a lot easier. And I do think that the number one way is to build relationships. And building relationships, you can do it through clubs, through activities, through sports, through going to watch Barbie or something like that, right? Or Barbenheimer, whatever it is, right? So for me, as like, I think that is a much better way for evangelism, and these are my thoughts on it. Question number 4 is, this comes from America, is how are we supposed to think about Provi and guns? Okay, so I think that we would all agree, and Sunseem said it himself, that of course, guns are violence, and guns are something that Providence is not for. Like, we're not for guns. However, it also depends on the culture of the society too. So let me give an example. So Sunseem is against guns, right? And he even said once that if someone has a gun, not to be next to him. Okay? So you're like, oh, okay, so he's totally against guns. However, and then, even in the 90s, he prayed for gun control in America. And there was a bill that was passed, I believe, in the Reagan era that went against like assault rifles and stuff like that. Okay. Then, when Sunseem was in prison for 10 years, he did say something that was quite shocking. He said that, God said that America having guns is a cultural thing. And that cannot be changed, right? You're not going to get rid of guns ever, kind of thing, right? It's a cultural thing. It's part of the Second Amendment, whatever it is, right? So what we see here is that in general, we are against guns, in general. But it also depends on the situation and circumstance of your country. So, like, put it this, let me give you like an example. Sunseem says that he doesn't like guns and doesn't want anyone with a gun near him. Yet, if someone was a police officer in America and was protecting him from a real threat, I don't think there would be an issue, right? There wouldn't be an issue, right? like in Korea, you're not going to see bodyguards with guns, but in America, you'll have bodyguards with guns. It's different because of the cultural situation and circumstance. So not liking guns is a general rule, but there's always a situation and circumstance, right? So if someone goes hunting, I don't think honestly, I don't think we're ever in a position to judge unless Sunstein is straight up like points at that person, you should never have a gun. Like, that would be the only time I'd be like, okay, that's, all right, I'm not judging you. You've been judged. So get rid of that gun. Like that for us, that's something that's so obvious, right? But I think we shouldn't be people who judge. And I don't think that we should be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you have a gun. We got people with guns in Providence. Of course, there's police officers. There's people that go hunting. There's people that are in certain, parts of the country where a gun is a normal thing. It's absolutely normal. Right? And if I thought about a situation where if you're in a situation, circumstance, for instance, if I was in a city where the violence is ridiculous and people are breaking into homes and such, I think you should be prepared for it. Right? I don't know if prayer is going to be the only, like, please God, let no one come to my house. But if it's rampant and you're in a bad area, I think people should be prepared in some way. It all depends on your situation and circumstance. So general rule is, yes, we are against them, right? Because of violence and it kills and such. And, taking life is one of the biggest things biggest sins that you can commit is taking someone's life, right? And that's a general rule, but we also have to understand situation, circumstance, and that is something I think all of us should really think about and not judge in any case, right? If that makes sense. The last question is about how do you reconcile extreme heat, like, what's happening in Europe right now? Extreme heat being a judgment when the world contributes it to human-caused climate change, or El Nino or whatever it is a judgment a paradox because we are judging ourselves? And that's a very interesting question because I do think that part of it is going to be, say, generational sin. Part of it could be generational sin. And like this person also brought up, the countries that seem to be judged the most are going to be third world countries that don't have the infrastructure to protect themselves, and those same countries haven't been given the word. So why are they judged when we've been given the word and are less affected by climate judgment because of our wealth, right? So I say that there isn't this is my personal opinion, guys. So I want you guys to I don't want there to be crazy comments on this, because one thing that Sunstein said is the world is going to say climate change, but when we hear the word, he's like, no, if it's excessive, it's judgment. Like, there's going to be hot deserts. There's going to be rainy tropical areas, right, where rain is abundant. But you're not, like I talked about yesterday, it's different and excessive if you have 3 months of rain in one day. That's excessive, right? If the weather is usually, you're going to have some hot weather during the summer, but it's excessive where it's like 42, 46, 47 degrees and people are dying. That's what happened in Vancouver, I think 3 years ago. In Vancouver, it went up to 42 degrees and something like 800 senior citizens died because people don't use air conditioning in Vancouver because we never have weather like that. It's very, very extreme, right? So for myself, I am not a huge advocate of climate change because there are so many scientists on both sides. It has been politicized to the point people are like taking one side or the other. For me, because of the media, because of the way politics runs, I don't know who to trust, but I do trust the word. And if the word says, hey, people will say what they want to say. They'll say what they want to believe because they think it's coincidence and they think it's they'll say climate change or whatever, but those who know the word are going to know, right? It wouldn't be any different than the judgment of the flood, which was super extreme, 20 feet above the highest mountain in that area, right? Which means that's super extreme, but the people say, oh, it was just, once in a lifetime natural disaster. You know what I mean? That's what they're going to say. And, they're not going to ever realize, right? So for me, the people of the world will think what they want to think, But when we know the words and when we know what God says, it's a lot easier for me to just push something aside like climate change and say, no, this is beyond. This is excessive, right? Temperatures shift and change all the time, right? And all throughout history, scientists have said that history, like the amount of shift that we have in temperature, like 1.5 or 2 degrees higher than we normally are, that's happened throughout thousands and thousands of years in the past. It would go up and down even when there wasn't the industrial revolution and such. So for me I understand that people are going to say that, but when we hear the words of God, it's not meant for people who don't believe, because only the people that do believe are going to be the ones that agree with it, right? So my personal feeling is I go by the word, and even when I do my research on climate change, man, it is a mess. It's a total mess. And there are two sides to it. It's not worth it to go too deep into it because of how politicized it is and how people, like, they'll die on that hill. They're going to die on the hill of there has to be, it must be this, and they're not going to budge and move in their thoughts. But we as people of God, we're looking for truth. And we know that the biggest thing that's going to happen right now, more than, what people are saying about the temperatures and such, we can say, knowing this time right now, we see why these things are happening. These excessive things are happening. So that's kind of my thoughts on this, right? And I don't think it's a paradox if we have faith and believe in the word. It's only a paradox if you are from the world and you think like the world, and and then you think everything is coincidence more than that. But that's why we get the word, to understand what is truth and what is the right thing. So those are the 5 questions for today. Hope it's something that you guys were able to receive a lot from. I love the question and answer sessions. We had 5 questions this week. Hopefully it wasn't too much for you guys. But yeah, that is something that I really, I'm very grateful for all your questions. All right. So there it is, guys. That is the end of QNA Thursday. Let's move into our second break of the day. Make sure you leave a comment below if you have any comments about any of these questions. So let's get to the second break of the day.
Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. No, I'm not slipping through. No, I'm not falling down. The only thing that's falling is my knees on the floor. I'm praying, Lord, will you give me strength? Lord, will you give me power? I can't do this myself, so bless me in the morning hours. All the demons test me, but they will never shake me. If I pray, they hate me. If I pray, you love me. Connected with you is the only thing that matters. And honestly, I couldn't be happier. While I'm praying on my knees, I trust you with all my heart. For you always come through. For myself, for my family, for myself alone I pray. Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. I pray
to never just settle for good when great is available. Who's the mastermind behind this mind? I give all the credit to God, that's why I'm back. They mad that I made it, I know that the Satans, they hate it. I keep working hard just to make progress. Now I'm on 10, trust is the process, ayy. Look at my efforts lately, I'm setting conditions daily. I'm praying on my knees, so bless me. Please bless me, please bless me. Tribulations always come and go, I will never stop, just always know your focus determines reality, stay solid, that's why I'm praying on my knees. I trust you with all my heart, for you to always come through. For myself, for my family, on myself alone I pray.
Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart, so I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through.
SB.
Okay, so let's get into the final segment for today. And today we have sermons in the sky. I'm going to do a really short one today, just some thoughts that I was thinking about because, the Q&A was quite long. And, I want to leave you with some thoughts to think about. Okay, so, I love sermon in the sky. It gives me the chance to kind of go into, practice my sermon and my preaching skills. And I hope that you guys will enjoy the thoughts that I'm going over now. Okay. So when we think about repentance, and that's something that we're doing right now, all the things that we've done in our life, all the things that we've committed, the things that God said not to do. And we think to ourselves like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And you think back and sometimes like you're thinking for so long, but you're like, I think I've repented for everything, And it's kind of funny sometimes because we're like, yeah, I think, how many times do I need to repent of the same sin over and over and over again? But it brought me back to this verse in the Bible in James chapter 1. And in verse 23, it says, anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says. And it really put me into a new thought of repentance. It's not just about the sins you commit, but it's also about the things that you should have done, the things you didn't do. And when I thought about this even more deeply, it's like, wow, even doing nothing is still sin. Like, isn't that crazy? Like some people would think, okay, well, I don't want to sin, so I'm just going to stay at home and do nothing. Like I'm just going to make sure that I'm not like doing anything bad. I'm not going to watch media. I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to read the Bible and I'm going to pray here. And I'm going to make sure that I am not going to have any sins. But then you commit the sin of not spreading the gospel. You commit the sin of not loving and having that first love of God that's so deep in your heart that whatever God wants, that's what you're going to do. And when I thought like to the next level of even doing nothing is a sin, it made me think about this time of this spiritual Oppenheimer. And it made me think about, there are people out there who choose to do nothing, right? And maybe some of you out there right now is like, I'm a little bit scared. I'm not sure if this is right or wrong. Like, what should I do in this situation? And what I'm saying is this. Let me give you a big example, an example that I want you guys to think about. So our spiritual Oppenheimer is like this situation. let's say that you're married and your husband or wife, your lover, is someone you put above yourself. You love them to death and you trust them with everything. You tell them everything. There's just this great relationship. And you, like, every day, you're just thankful you have this person there with you. They've been with you through the ups and the downs. They've been with you through the toughest times in your life. And then one day, one of your friends comes to you and says that your lover did something so terrible. And, well, let's flip it around. Let's say one of your lover's friends goes to them and says that you did something terrible, that you were the one that did something so bad and egregious. And you turn to your wife, you turn to your husband, and you say, honey, I didn't do it. I swear I didn't do it. And this is something that's, I feel that is unjust. This is injustice at the highest. And you look at your wife or you look at your husband and you say, do you believe me? And what if your husband or wife looks back at you and says, oh, I'm not sure, so I'm just going to wait? How would you feel? How would you feel if that person, the closest person in your life, says, let me just wait. I'm not going to do anything until all the evidence and all the court trials are done. I'm going to wait. I think I believe my friend, actually. Tell me how hurt you'd be. How deeply cut you'd be, and even feeling betrayed. Because at that moment, in that moment in time, two things come to mind. Number one is, how can they trust their friend more than their own husband, their own wife? And two is, how could they not believe me? And if your husband or wife said that and did that to you, would you want to be with that person anymore? And what has happened there is that person has chosen to do nothing. They have chosen to say, I don't believe you. And that's something that cuts deep. We need to realize that at this time, we can't do nothing. We need to pray. Pray for the one that is sent. Pray for the one that we've seen with our own eyes. We've heard the words, and there is nothing wrong. Can anyone blame us? Like, if we were the ones that were seeing any improprieties, and we'd be like, oh my gosh, wow, my... But all of us here are sitting here with nothing to say because we haven't seen anything close to it. And yes, the person accusing could be my brother or my sister. But the person they are accusing is someone who we should be loving even more, who we should believe even more, not only from the words, but also seeing them in person. And I hope that that analogy helps us out to really understand and realize the sins we make is not just the sin of doing something. There's also the sin of doing and choosing not to do anything at all. Now, I'm not saying take a flight to Korea and start doing protests. I'm not saying go out and do the craziest thing possible. Go on the internet, start writing stuff that I believe I'm on this person's side, whatever it is. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is our faith should get better. We shouldn't just be waiting at church, just going to services. We should be better than we were before. We should have that mentality and mindset that we've learned since we came to this history. That strong mentality of doing things until the end. I hope that all of us here can really realize from what we just heard, and we can have that mentality and mindset that will be even more deeply rooted in faith. So I really, really hope that today's Sermon in the Sky kind of resonated with all of us, and I hope that everyone has an amazing and awesome Thursday, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion.